Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and you need this pig. In today's video, I'm going to be talking all about the lechonk calm day, and why, against all odds, this is actually a calm day that is pretty important to people who care about PvP. I'm actually traveling this weekend, so unfortunately this is the first time in quite a while that I will not have a feature on the new calm day mon as soon as the calm day happens. So I wanted to make this video to release a day before the calm day, just so people who care about PvP were aware of the fact that this is actually a decently important calm day, and what they should be looking to find, and why it matters. Now to start with, let's talk about the basics. Lechonk calm day is going to occur Saturday, May the 9th from 2 to 5 p.m. local time. So if you're watching this video on the day that it releases, then I'm talking about tomorrow. Now lechonk is going to evolve into Oinkologne that learns the fast attack Mud Slap. Now Mud Slap previously was one of the best fast attacks in the game. However, it has since gotten a nerf, so it does less damage than it did before, and on top of that, Oinkologne is a pure normal type, so it does not get same type attack bonus. So the question would be, why would Oinkologne matter when it's getting Mud Slap, a move that doesn't really seem to do a lot for it? Well, to talk about that, we've got to move over to PvPoke. PvPoke, absolutely one of the best websites that you can look at when it comes to PvP. But the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that Oinkologne male and female actually have very different stats in Pokemon Go. Now typically, as far as the Great League goes, bulk is king. If you can run a bulkier version of a Pokemon, it's usually going to be better than the glacier version. And Oinkologne male has 117 attack and 1900 stat product, but Oinkologne female has 109 attack and almost like mid-2000s stat product. So that is significantly bulkier. So on this calm day, you're actually going to want to try and find female lechonk that have good PvP IVs, not the male, because the male is actually substantially worse. Now, 2042 stat product is actually quite bulky. If we sort here and take a look at stat product and end up scrolling down to find what is a pretty comparable bulk level here, we're talking about Fortress. Fortress, pretty bulky Pokemon. Toedscruel, pretty bulky Pokemon as well. Amoonguss, Vullaby, all in a very similar range. Orthworm. So we're talking about some pretty nice bulk on this Pokemon. And as far as moveset goes, Oinkologne has access to Body Slam, so it has a pretty cheap spam move, and Trailblaze. Now this is where things start to get a little bit interesting for Oinkologne. Because Mud Slap, true, it doesn't do as much damage as it used to, but Trailblaze allows you to boost up that Mud Slap damage, and you have a very bulky Pokemon. It's going to get to boost up its Mud Slaps more and more, and by virtue of being very bulky, it should be able to tank quite a few hits. So Oinkologne actually looks quite solid. I'm going to start with simming it against the open Great League meta. I'm going to have to add Mud Slap, because obviously it doesn't have Mud Slap just yet, but there is going to be an upcoming limited meta where Oinkologne actually does look to be top meta. But to start with, we'll start with the open Great League. And right off the bat, 52.8% win rate in the ones. So Oinkologne actually looks to be a pretty competent Pokemon in the open Great League. Now, I would argue it's not going to be meta by any means. We're probably looking at anti-meta at best, but still very competent. 43% win rate in the zeros. Let's take a look at the twos. In the twos, 58.5%. So despite the fact that this is a lechonk calm day, it does actually look like a Pokemon that is going to be worth obtaining. You just have to ensure that when you get good PvP IVs, you have to make sure that it is the Oinkologne female, not the Oinkologne male, because the Oinkologne male is just strictly worse, basically. I will sim the Oinkologne male just so we can see that it's just worse, but it has the higher attack, but it doesn't quite have the bulk. So unfortunately, you are batting at a lower win rate here. Instead of 58% of the twos, down to 47 in the ones, 47, and I believe the female was above 50% there as well. And in the zeros, even worse, down to 37%. So the Oinkologne male is strictly worse than the Oinkologne female. And it does look to be pretty solid for the Great League. Now, Oinkologne does actually get enough combat power here to make it to the Ultra League, and it doesn't actually need a lot of XLs. Well, it didn't in the male form. It definitely does in the female form, so I will stand corrected there. But I do want to very briefly sim it in the Ultra League as well before we do take a look at the meta where it's going to matter the most, and that is going to be the upcoming NEIC meta. So let's take a look at the zeros. 40.7% in the zeros, so not terrific by any means, but also not terrible. In the ones, it's batting even, 50% win rate. So not bad for Oinkologne. 4462 stat product is very, very bulky and 51% in the twos. So if we take a look in the Ultra League, sort by stat product, using the 4400s, we are talking about Tinkaton level bulk, Tentacruel level bulk. That's some pretty significant bulk. Credilli, Stunfisk, Suicune, Jellicent, Oranguru, like, those are some pretty bulky Pokemon. To be clear, I don't think it's going to be top meta in either league, but I think it will be very playable in both leagues, and as a result, it should be an absolute terror in some limited metas. Alright, I feel that I've teased it enough. Let's talk about the big reason why Oinkologne is going to matter. That is the North American International Championship Series Cup. Now, we've already had, for the Latin American Internationals and the European Internationals, 2 limited metas, where the competitors competed at the event in the meta, and we had the meta for 2 weeks in the Go Battle League. The North American International Championship Series is going to occur in early June. I believe it's the first or second weekend of June. I'm not quite sure which, but either way, considering it's already in May, we're only about a month away. And this meta does have some pretty complicated rules, which I will put on screen here. Fairy, Normal, Psychic, Water Pokemon are allowed. Anything with the subtyping of Dark, Grass, and Steel are not allowed, and there's a lot of strict bans, including Araquanid, Carbink, Chansey, Chinchou, Claydol, Clefable, Cresselia, Dedenne, Diggersby, Farfetch, Gastrodon, Golisopod, Greedent, Jellicent, Lantern, Licky, Lickitung, Lugia, Medicham, Oranguru, and Poliwrath. So you're left with a meta that does have quite a lot of Psychic types. Hypno, Uxie, Grumpig, Miltank, Alolan Raichu, and Oinkologne Female. If we take a look across a lot of the top Pokemon, Oinkologne Female just straight up beats them. Oinkologne Female in this meta is an absolute nightmare. Look at this, 61% win rate in the ones. Mud Slap, Body Slam, Trailblaze being a bulky Pokemon that can boost up its attack. Oinkologne Female is a threat in this limited meta. I'm now going to sim the twos. The twos somehow get even scarier, 64% win rate. Let's take a look at what actually beats this Pokemon. Togekiss, of course, Toucanon, Gyarados, Orbeetle, Grumpig, Dubwool, but it's able to beat Hypno in the twos. It's beating Azumarill. It's beating Alolan Ninetales. It's beating Lapras. It's beating a lot of very, very bulky Pokemon. It is just out-bulking Miltank by virtue of being able to boost up its damage. So this is a pretty scary Pokemon in this meta. It's ranked top 10, and it sims incredibly well. Its worst sim performance in this meta is the Zeros, where it has a 59% win rate. Now, this is a meta that a lot of people may not be aware of because they haven't announced it yet as a part of Go Battle League, because it'll be announced with the new season. But the competitors for the North American International Championships need to know about the meta ahead of time, so the meta rules have already been announced. So we know that this will be coming to Go Battle League in the next competitive season, and we assume that it's going to arrive in and around that 2nd to 3rd week of June. And if you don't have Oinkologne Female in this meta, I think it could honestly end up being a bit of a disadvantage, considering that Oinkologne Female looks to be very, very strong. It's simming incredibly well in this meta. Mud Slap plus Trailblaze is just an absolute nightmare into anything that doesn't have a Mud Slap resist. So, even though it looks pretty solid in those open formats, I would say the big reason why this Comm Day matters so much is this NEIC Championship Series Cup meta. For 2 weeks, Oinkologne Female is going to be absolutely terrorizing the meta, and Pokemon that tend to terrorize limited metas tend to do so again in the future. Back before Vigoroth ended up getting buffed to the point where it was Open Great League meta, there was always the joke that every limited meta was a Vigoroth meta, because when the lower power level was added and some of the top meta Pokemon were banned, a Pokemon like Vigoroth could always shine. Before Furret ended up becoming top Open Great League meta, it was very similar for Furret, where every limited meta jokingly was a Furret meta, because Furret couldn't really compete in the Open Great League, but in the limited metas, it was strong enough that it could dominate. I think there could be a very similar phenomenon with the Oinkologne Female, where Oinkologne Female, it has incredible stats, it has pretty nice moves, and the ability to boost up Mud Slap damage and be able to take a lot of hits really makes Oinkologne Female stand out in comparison to a lot of other normal types. So, if you do end up playing this Comm Day, and I do highly encourage you to play it, make sure you're going out catching those lechonks. If you get good PvP IVs, make sure you are evolving the female Oinkologne. Do not evolve the male Oinkologne. It's just worse, but the female Oinkologne looks to be a pretty solid contender to add to your Great League roster. If you want to build one for the Ultra League, you can. I don't think it's super necessary in the Ultra League. It's kind of just like playable anti-meta at best there. But for the Great League, I think you definitely want to get Oinkologne. This is going to be a very strong contender for that Championship Series Cup meta, where there's some very weird Pokemon that are very highly ranked. Like Uxie at number 3, I know a lot of people don't have built. Linoone at number 9, Orbeetle. This is a very interesting meta. Barbaracle at number 17. Mew, which always requires 1,000 charge PMs. Normal cast form. Kecleon, Furfrou. Now, one word of caution that I do want to provide. When it comes to taking a look at this Championship Series Cup meta, there will be a move update between now and when this Championship Series Cup meta is released. So there's a chance that certain Pokemon that aren't good in the meta, at least that we see now, could be good in the meta once the meta has been updated with all those changes. However, I do still think that it is worth getting Oinkologne female, because even if new meta Pokemon rise to the top of this meta, a Pokemon that's bulky that can boost up its Mudslaps should be pretty strong regardless. Now, originally, I was just going to end the video there, but I figured I should also do some extra analysis with regards to taking a look at the stats for Oinkologne female. So here I have inputted the meta for the NEIC Championship Series Cup, and I have quite a few different Oinkolones. We have the rank 1 Oinkologne, we have more of a default, like let's say a good Oinkologne that you could get from a weather boosted Calm Day. We have an HP weighted one and a defense weighted one. So I'm going to be simming it against the NEIC meta with default IVs and then high IVs, just to take a look at a few of the differences. So right off the bat, it looks like the more middling Oinkologne can actually pick up Lapras in the zeros, but ends up dropping Hypno. The Oinkologne female that's very defense weighted picks up the Mirror, but ends up dropping Galarian Slowking and Hypno. And the very HP weighted one picks up Lapras, but dropping Hypno, the Mirror, and Slowking once again. You can take a look at different breakpoints and bulk points. So it looks like there is a Mudslap breakpoint that you can get versus Dunsparce. There's one that you can get in the Mirror. This one gets one versus Feraligatr, Linoone. So there are a few breakpoints to get. And as for bulk points, now this is what I was a little curious about. It looks like investing very heavily in defense doesn't really get you much of anything, at least that I'm seeing. All you're really doing here is, if you're going better than the rank 1, you get a Feraligatr Shadow Claw bulk point, which Feraligatr famously runs the fast attack of Shadow Claw, and Shadow Claw is double resisted. So I don't think you're really too worried about Shadow Claw damage from a Feraligatr onto an Oinkologne. So while that's something to note, it appears that heavily investing in defense over everything else doesn't really have a lot of benefits. Whereas investing in HP, you end up dropping quite a few bulk points, including a Confusion 1 to Hypno, Confusion to Orbeetle, Acid to Slowking, Peck to Shadow Toucannon, and Fairy Wind to Shadow Galarian Weezing. So right away, it looks like I would be probably leaning more towards kind of just a generic high rank spread, but I will also be taking a look at the 1s and the 2s here, just because I do want to see if there are any matchup changes. In the 1s, it looks like Miltank is actually picked up if you're not the rank 1 Oinkologne, and there's also some shenanigans in the Mirror, presumably just due to charge attack priority ties. And let's take a look at the 2s. In the 2s, you're able to pick up Lapras, and Lapras, it doesn't have a break point there, but it looks like you are able to pick up the Lapras when you're normally not able to. Okay, so it goes from a tie in the 2s to a win. So all in all, not a massive difference there, and it looks like pretty similar in performance across the board. I do want to now switch it to where it's going to be the maximum stat product, and we can run these once again. For breakpoints, the only thing you're getting with a bit of extra attack is extra Mudslap damage into Munchlax and Kingdra. And for bulk points, looks like against the rank 1, you can actually get a bulk point against Dubwool, Swampert, and Uxie. Now the Dubwool one, that's the thing I wanted to check, is does it actually change the matchup? And it looks like you're still in for a very rough matchup. Dubwool having double kick, being able to outpace you. it makes sense that it would still be a pretty negative matchup, but if that's not really flipping the matchup, then I don't know if it's a bulk point to really target. So in the head-to-head matchups, it looks like you're picking up Shadow Hypno, but dropping the regular Hypno, which is a little bit fun. Taking a look at the ones. And the ones, again, it feels like kind of a wash. And anytime I'm seeing some up, some down, and primarily just a wash, the twos are actually where we do see the first sign of the rank 1 not being the default one that you want to go for. There are some pickups here in the twos. But personally, I think after taking a look at all this, and more importantly, taking a look at the break points and the bulk points, unless something like Kingdra ends up picking up dramatically in popularity, I think I'm probably just going to target more towards the default PvP IVs. Just because, unless there are a very specific check that can flip a matchup, and it didn't really look like there was if you end up heavily investing into HP or heavily investing into defense, then usually bulk is going to be the way to go. So I think that would be my recommendation, is going for an Oinkologne. Obviously, you want the Oinkologne female, and just go for high bulk, and you should be in a pretty good spot for the NEIC Championship Series meta. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I know it's a very different kind of video than what you're probably used to seeing on the channel, but with me being away for the weekend, I still wanted people to get the information about the comm day as quickly as they possibly could, so that way people would be able to make the decision of if they want to compete in that NEIC meta when it comes to Go Battle League. They can play the comm day and already be off to a pretty good start because Oinkologne looks very strong. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.